Okay, and it is now noon, so in the interest of everybody's time, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Leah Raffa. I'm part of the DPS Substance Use Prevention Program. Our program implements prevention programming in middle and high schools throughout Denver Public Schools. We have started this webinar series. We host a webinar on the first Wednesday of every month, and we bring in experts throughout the Denver community to talk about just topics that are really relevant to DPS parents, families, staff. And today I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Anna Marie Wolf. Dr. Anna Marie Wolf is currently doing her fellowship in pediatric pulmonology at the Children's Hospital, Colorado. Dr. Anne Marie Wolf is originally from Florida and graduated from Florida International University Medical School in Miami in 2016 before completing her pediatric residency training in Austin, Texas in 2019. She's interested in promoting lung health and plans to take care of children of all ages with various lung disease after completing her fellowship. And so today, Dr. Wolf is here to talk to us about vaping and specifically the things that parents and adults should know. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. So as you know, I'm one of the fellows at the University of Colorado at the Children's Hospital, and that basically just means I am doing an extra training program to be an expert in taking care of kids' lungs. So I have one more year to go. So this topic today is all about what you need to know about vaping. So kind of decided to go through the very basics and explain what vaping is. Vaping is the act of inhaling and exhaling the aerosol produced by an electronic cigarette, or also known as an e-cigarette. E-cigarettes are battery-operated smoking devices that create a heated vapor that the users will inhale and then exhale. They often have a big dramatic cloud of smoke. They typically, or most often, can be used to deliver nicotine and cannabis, either THC or CBD. And they also tend to have different flavorings and a whole assortment of various chemicals and other substances. There are tons of different names for them, and you could hear teenagers call them anything. I think some of the most common ones are vape pens, pods, rigs, or tanks. And then the most common brand that kind of really popularized vaping was Juul. And Juul kind of got in trouble recently for targeting their advertisements toward teenagers. So 5 truths about vaping. The first one is that it is less harmful than smoking, like a traditional cigarette, which is kind of what the purpose of all of the advertisements started out as. This is safer than cigarettes. Switch to vaping so that you're not smoking cigarettes, but it's still not safe. So you can't consider it a safe alternative to smoking. Vaping can also cause lung disease and asthma, and it also can contribute to heart disease. Devices often contain super high amounts of nicotine, which make them very addictive. Like 1 Juul pen has more nicotine in it than an entire box of cigarettes. The vaping is not a great tool for smoking cessation, despite the advertisements and the targets of the companies trying to reach current smokers to switch from traditional cigarettes to e-cigarettes. And then because of how addicting they are and because of how popular they've become, our new generation of teenagers and youths are becoming addicted to nicotine when they may not have otherwise started smoking because of all of the badness we know about cigarettes. Here is a bunch of different pictures of different devices, basically showing you that these vape devices can look like anything. This one right here, I find particularly disturbing as a lung doctor because it's designed to look like an inhaler that you would prescribe and use for lung disease. And so this one bothers me a lot. I would hate to see, like, it would be hard to tell if a teenager is using that as opposed to their albuterol. And so that's definitely very hard to see. And then some of the other ones look like USB devices and are super tiny, which makes them really discreet and really easy to hide. I think some of these longer shaped, tall, skinny ones are kind of the more like a lot of the really common ones. But to be honest, they can look like truly anything. And that was why I was showing you this device or this image to show you just how different they all may look. This infographic is a couple of years old, so it's a little bit old, but it's still what we use at the Children's Hospital on one of our handouts. And it kind of gives a little bit more information to show simply what the important things are needed or what the important things are when it comes to vaping. So typically the e-cigarettes produce an odorless vapor, but with the flavorings that are added to them, they often do have like a scent associated with it. And then these statistics are about the Colorado teens, and I'll go into that a little bit later, are still pretty accurate that Colorado kids are vaping a lot more than the national average. And then recently, the age to buy tobacco and vape products was increased to the age of 21, but there is still some difficulty or you can still buy them online without a true ID, which makes it challenging to regulate and challenging to prove that you are of the right age to buy it. And then almost every single one of these vape devices contains nicotine, and often a large amount of nicotine. So the 2021 National Youth Tobacco Survey, which happens every year, was conducted in these data here are some kind of powerful points. Since 2014, e-cigarettes are the most commonly used tobacco product, which means that more people are using vape devices or e-cigarettes than are using traditional cigarettes. And then most often people are using disposable devices or these pre-filled and refillable ones, which are kind of all the pictures I just showed you on that previous slide. The 11% of high school students in the United States, which translates to about 1.72 million, report current use on this survey. And I would say that that number is probably really underestimated, given that this is high school students who are agreeing to take a survey and then acknowledging in a survey that they smoke. So I would guess that that number is actually probably a lot higher. And then of that, or in addition to that, 2.8% of middle schoolers have said that they currently vape. 28% of high school students report daily use, which is a lot. When you look at those numbers and you think about of that 1.72 million students, 28% of, like, that's even more. And then 85% of our youth users report using the flavored e-cigarettes. The flavors that come in the vape devices are most commonly, the very popular ones are fruit flavors, candy flavors, different desserts and sweets. And that's like the number one category. And then the second category would be mint flavor, and the last category is menthol as the most popular ones. And then I went to all of these different popular vape devices and went to their websites to see what they looked like. So the most common type of device used by e-cigarette device used by high schoolers on that survey, which was 26%, was this brand called Puff Bar. And so these are what the devices look like. The Puff Bar website definitely made it really easy to buy online and said that if you ship it, it might require a signature for someone over the age of 21, depending on your area. So that's a little alarming to me, which is also probably why 26% of high schoolers are using this particular brand, but I don't know that for sure. And then a couple of other websites that I have as well. This is Juul. Juul makes you verify that you're 21 before you go in to the website, but you just have to click the button that says I'm 21 and I agree. Juul is also very popular among high school students. This one is called Soren, and this one I put the picture up particularly because of the advertisements for different candy flavors. And then this one is called Smoke. And again, here are pictures of the devices. This one is Views. This is the second most popular one, where 11% of high school students reported using this brand. This one also asks you to verify before it even lets you get in the website, and it has this big warning saying these products all contain nicotine, which is great because there, in some of the previous earlier vaping devices, a lot of them didn't have any comment about having nicotine in them at all. And then just another side note for this is that 15% of the high schoolers and 20% of the middle schoolers who reported using vape devices reported that they did not know the name of the brand that they were using. So here in Colorado, we all know that the legal age to buy smoking and vaping products is 21, but it's hard to say if that's truly enforced. There, in the past couple of years, have been a lot of reports of companies or stores selling to underage people and having gotten caught. In Colorado, or in Denver specifically, 1 in 5 teens report using e-cigarettes. And that Colorado youth vape at twice the national average. And this is still as of 2021. So it's been several years that Colorado youth vape at twice the national average. Often teens don't even realize that vaping and e-cigarette use is risky. They don't think it is bad. 87% of them say that smoking a regular cigarette is risky and bad, but only 50% of them say that smoking or using a vape device is risky. 62% of our Colorado youth who vape use disposable devices that are discreet, cheap, and often flavored. And so to talk a little bit about the dangers of the use, the biggest thing and one of the most dangerous reasons is because of the amount of nicotine that's in these devices. Nicotine is really harmful to the developing brain. The children's brains or people's brains develop until the age of 25. So using nicotine and becoming addicted to nicotine in your teenage years impacts your ability to pay attention, your learning, mood, impulse control, and it changes the actual way that the brain forms. So the synapses and the connections that the brain makes as you grow and develop and make memories and all those kinds of things are completely altered when you're addicted to nicotine. And then data shows that youths that start using nicotine and vaping are 4 times more likely to transition to smoking traditional cigarettes. Smoking is also associated with mental health symptoms such as depression. And that's not only because of the nicotine addiction or nicotine withdrawal, it's just associated with depression in general. And then people like to think that the vapor is harmless and it's just this water vapor, but it contains all kinds of different substances. So like I mentioned, it has nicotine. It also has ultrafine particles because it's vaporizing these chemicals into really small pieces, and they can get inhaled really, really deep into the lungs. The different flavorings, diacetyl is one of the top ones that's in the flavoring, and that has been linked to a lot of serious lung diseases and lung issues. There are volatile organic compounds, different cancer-causing compounds and chemicals, and different heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead that all can cause problems for your lungs. It can also lead to specifically lung injury. Kids can have chronic cough, chest pain. They can have a condition called popcorn lung, or something kind of with a scary name of bronchiolitis obliterans. And it's basically like scarring of your lung. You can have asthma exacerbations. I've seen kids who start vaping that kind of trigger an asthma that may have been not too bad growing up, and then all of a sudden they have really bad asthma and hard time breathing. And then EVALI, which is, you may have heard about that lung disease in recent years, when right after vaping started, was this mysterious illness where kids were getting really sick, where they were getting lung injury associated with smoking and the chemicals, which we thought might be related to the waxes and the oils that go in those vape devices. There is some concern that there might be related seizures, but that's still being studied. And then secondhand vape, which most a lot of the parents that I talk to when I'm at work and taking care of kids with lung disease think that vaping isn't as harmful. And so they would never smoke a cigarette in front of their kids, but will smoke the vape pen in front of their kids because it's harmless. And really, we know that that's not true because of all of those harmful substances that I just mentioned. And then if kids can get a handle of these, it's possible to be poisoned if they were to swallow the chemicals that go into those pens. And then if the device explodes, you can get burns. And then we do see that there are cancers that develop in mice as a result of vaping. And there are tons and tons of ongoing studies to try and learn more about the dangers. And then in terms of laws and regulations, federally, the legal age to buy all tobacco products was increased in 2019 from 18 to 21. We do have laws in place that prevent you from smoking in indoor places. And then last week, there was an FDA proposing a ban on menthol, which, as I mentioned, is one of the top flavors that teens use. Colorado is currently working on banning flavors. The Denver City Council had proposed banning flavoring starting in July 2023, but it was vetoed by the mayor. So it's still working on that. But one thing to note is that if we increase tobacco tax, every 10% increase in the cigarette prices reduces youth smoking by about 7% and total cigarette consumption by 4%. So that's definitely good to know. Just make it more expensive and make it more inaccessible. And then I'm running out of time, so I'll kind of go through this quickly, but I wanted to give some information about how to bring it up and how to talk to teens about vaping, kind of keeping in mind that kids and children are really concrete and pay more attention to right and wrong, whereas like teens and older teens probably will think about things a little bit differently. So it's important to think about them by different ages. And then the best way to help teens who are already addicted and smoking would be to use different smoking cessation techniques. And the My Life, My Quit from Colorado Quitline is a really cool website. I put the website there on the slide right here. And additionally, you can call that number or you can text this phone number and it helps connect the teenagers with someone who's willing to help them quit smoking. And then one last thing to say is that nicotine replacement like gum and patches and those kinds of things are not recommended for kids under the age of 18. They work great in adults, but we don't see them working great in kids. So that is all I have for you today. I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions. So please let me know if there's anything that you are concerned about.
Thank you. That was so great. I feel like I learned a ton. And we do have a couple questions in the chat, and everyone else, please feel free to put any questions that you have in our Q&A. So the first one is, many of our kids are seeing vaping everywhere in the community with their peers using frequently. What advice do you have for parents trying to help their child?
So I would say kind of where I brought this slide up, depending on the age of your child, I think it's really important to bring it up in a situation that's easy to talk about. So when you see someone vaping, say, oh, look, like that's a great opportunity to bring it up as opposed to just bringing it up out of the blue without any context. So you see someone on the street smoking or you smell it and say, oh gosh, that's what vaping is. And vaping is bad for your lungs and, go into the description of why you don't recommend doing it. And like I said, younger kids probably respond to that a little bit better than teenagers who will probably roll their eyes at you when you say anything like that, but they listen and hear what you say. So just repetition and keeping consistent and being a positive role model are all great ways to show that be consistent and that this is not good for you. The next question, how do I know if my child is vaping marijuana or tobacco? So that is a tricky question. It can be difficult to tell the difference. a lot of these vaping devices will typically contain nicotine. And so that would be the more common thing, but there are a lot of devices like those pods where you can buy different oils to put in them, and it can be marijuana. So the vaping marijuana still smells a little bit like traditional marijuana, and you'll still have the same kinds of symptoms that if they were smoking actual marijuana, where they get the bloodshot eyes and are tired and hungry and that kind of thing. But it's hard to say. It's hard to totally identify. And then please confirm the impact of secondhand vaping. Absolutely. The vapors contain a lot of bad, let me go back to that slide. The vapors contain a lot of chemicals and the flavorings and all of those things, which when you vaporize it, turn into teeny tiny little particles that go into the air. So when that vape cloud comes up where you can smell the vape product, you are inhaling those tiny little particles. And those tiny particles can go deeper into your lungs. So even if your child is not, or even if the child is not smoking, but they're around someone who is smoking constantly, they still will inhale those small particles. And then, do you have any videos or resources to share to show kids the horrible things? Yeah, I think I could find some and send them over to you. I think I don't have anything right on hand right now to pull up and show you, but there are tons of YouTube videos and tons of great resources from like the CDC and Johns Hopkins that all had a lot of information about vaping. And so I think I could probably find some good videos. And then, no, we don't have any cessation products approved for use. We do not recommend any nicotine replacement therapy for them. So the gum would not be recommended. We want to get the kids off of nicotine as fast as possible. So we don't want them transitioning to a different type of nicotine. And we don't have any evidence that it works to help them stop smoking. So I would recommend using the Colorado Quit line if your teenager is interested in engaging in that, because that has been proven to be the most effective way to get teenagers to stop.
That's great. And there's a couple comments in the chat. First of all, Susan, and I apologize if I'm going to say your last name incorrectly, Susan Westhrop from Jeffco Public Health Tobacco Program. Just wanted to clarify that you mentioned that a volley was from smoking and that it's actually related to vaping.
Yes. Sorry if I misspoke. Yes, it is from electronic cigarettes and inhaling the vaporized particles.
Thank you. And then she also had a question. So they had somebody ask the tobacco team recently if vaping melatonin was safe. And their team didn't know how to respond to that except to say that vaping anything isn't safe, and we don't know enough about vaping melatonin, and that ingesting them would be safer. Is that correct?
Yes, I would 100% agree with that. I actually haven't heard of anyone vaping melatonin, but I stand firm in that nothing should be inhaled into your lungs except for oxygen. And so no vape product of any kind is safe.
Thank you. And Ashley McMullen, you asked, I would love to speak more with you regarding prevention. I'm not sure whether or not you're speaking to me or Dr. Wolf. I will certainly send out a follow-up email with my contact information and a link to this video afterwards, and we can talk prevention. Okay, another question. I know that vaping goes on in the bathroom of my daughter's middle school. I worry about the legal trouble for my daughter if she happens to be in the same room. I know she used to vape, but I don't think she does anymore. It's a conundrum. How can I enlist the school to help make sure she doesn't vape anymore? I'll let Dr. Wolf, I'll let you answer, and then I can also answer for.
I was going to say, I think you probably might have more information about that than I do. I'm more on the side of trying to do what I can to help you not vape. And I don't know about trouble and legal things as much.
Yes. And Lisa, thank you for that question. If she is at a DPS school, I would just love for you to reach out to me and we can chat more about specifically the resources that might be available at her specific school. Because of course, every school is a little different and they have something different going on, but I'd love to chat more. And yes, I see that. And then Teresa also answered, sorry.
That sounds like a great idea, giving posters and having them hang up in the school just to reiterate all of the badness about it. Seems like it would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I will say that our team does have a variety of different prevention programming in many of our schools, as well as we utilize the second chance program for students that are using, which is a brief intervention, just giving them some tools to get through the quitting process. We are also starting to use Catch My Breath, which I will put a video from Catch My Breath in the chat. It's a parent video. So another great resource. Oh, it looks like Megan just put that in the chat. Right. Are there any other questions? Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody joining today. Dr. Wolf, thank you so much. Again, that was so informative. I very much appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks. Yeah. And there's my contact information if you would like to reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.